Don't forget we told you so. Happy birthday!
All right, let's get on with it.
Happy birthday to you.
Very good, Lewis. Short but pointless.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Steel Sanctuary Podcast. I'm your host, Dave Rivero from SteelSanctuary.com. I got Bob Quinn and the birthday boy, Zachary Smith, with us. Sean will be joining us in a little while. Guys, how's it going?
It's going great.
That was an awesome intro, Bob.
No, I'm joking. I
very
appreciate that. That was awesome. I appreciate that. My birthday was Friday, but first time I've obviously been on here since then. I appreciate the well wishes from everybody. The amount of people that reached out to me, I'm always humbled by it, and I'm humbled every time you guys ask me to be on the podcast. I literally was on podcast last week, and somebody was like, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for. I'm like, dude, I'm always humbled the fact that anybody cares enough about my opinion to want to bring me on a podcast to share it. So happy to be back.
We love having you, buddy. Love having you on. Slow news week, obviously. Mini camp's over. We got a little time to kill before training camp starts. I wanted to hit on a few news items before we get started, though. AB arrest warrant. Is this the one that finally takes him down? Is this the one? It's. We knew it was going to end sadly, but they're charging him with attempted murder.
Yeah, it's so weird because there's if you're just going based off the short video that came out with it, I could see people kind of being on AB's side for the way things went down. Like he was getting jumped, and I don't know, but I guess he took the gun of a security guard that was there and started shooting at the person. And the fact that the person was running away is obviously makes it a lot different than actively being hit or whatever and trying to defend yourself. So I don't know. I don't know what's going to come of this, but the worst thing about all of this is I'm not surprised. I think that's the saddest thing about all of it is anytime you hear Antonio Brown's name attached to anything with a negative connotation, there doesn't surprise you. And I think that that's probably the best way that I can put it.
It's really sad, but I mean, the one good thing, well, I don't know how good of a thing we can really call it, but the one kind of good thing is this is a little bit older. I mean, this happened a few months ago, and okay, yeah, maybe they've progressed it to the point. Look, bottom line is if he did shoot a gun at somebody, they're probably going to get him on attempted murder. He's probably got a good lawyer who's going to get him. If they got video evidence, pretty hard to beat that. You just got to hope you got a good enough lawyer to, limit it to, maybe house arrest or something like that for his sake. Honestly, though, if it is true this happened, I think, they used to give you the option way back when of you committed a crime and this is kind of a first offense-ish kind of violent crime, you could join the military. So we'll just say he could join the Steelers as a wide receiver. No. He's got to join the Steelers as a wide receiver.
Oh, man. We had a conversation, 3, 4, maybe 6 months ago about will he ever make the Hall of Fame? And he had gone quiet for a while, and he hadn't done anything stupid in months. They're like, maybe if he keeps this up, he just set himself back another forever, maybe. At this point, nobody wants to see AB in front of a camera at the Hall of Fame ceremonies. Nobody.
Yeah, imagine what you'd have to be worried about what's he going to do on stage.
100%.
They say time heals all wounds. The thing is, this dude just keeps opening up new ones. He waits a year or so and then bam. What you're talking about a conversation you had a couple months ago about that. Wasn't it just a couple weeks ago? There was a conversation on here because when Rodgers officially signed, he was trying to posture to potentially make a comeback or something like that. My God, this dude is something else. Obviously the ship has sailed on that and has for quite a few years, but yeah, I don't know. I feel terrible, but like I said, nothing associated in a negative light with Antonio Brown is going to surprise me from here on out.
No, it's a downward spiral. It's sad, but you're right. You're just waiting for the final, he's going to end up in jail or God forbid dead. Cause he hasn't stopped. It's just gotten progressively worse. Usually people, go ahead, Bob.
I was going to say, it kind of looked like for a minute there, and maybe this is not, the ship hasn't sailed, where this whole ESPN or CT X, he's got to be getting some income from that because he's got a ton of followers. And, it's funny. I mean, so I think there's an audience for him. It's not the kind of money he's going to be used to making, but I mean, I think he's got a steady income of social media stuff he can do. as long as he doesn't, sprinkle in some of these, violent crimes in between, then, I love I think CT ESPN is hilarious. I mean, I
I
follow.
think he's got writers for that, doesn't he?
Yeah, and I actually heard a while ago that he had sold his own account, and so I don't know what's true and what isn't at this point. I know for sure some kid that was going to UCF was definitely running it for him at one point. That was who people were saying he sold the account to. I don't know if that actually took place or what is going on there, but yeah, I mean, see, that's the thing. Like Bob said, it's I find humor in a lot of it because I don't take it seriously, but at the same time, that's kind of he's walking a line there, and how often going to cross it.
Yep. You can tell. You can kind of tell when he tweets it, or when I think he tweets it, and when the other guys are tweeting stuff, because there is a stark difference you see in some of the tweets. And that's the stuff that's going to get him in trouble.
The coherency level.
yeah, exactly. That's part of it, and the vulgarity ratchets up a notch or two too. What else do we got? I saw a rumor, an Alan Lazard rumor, on the internet today, and
Alan mentioned that to me, and I don't know how it's possible for me to spend a day on the internet and it happened. I had completely missed this until Alan brought it up to me doing our podcast earlier. So, I mean, we knew that this was going to be a conversation, right? But the thing is, take a look at the Jets depth chart. You take Alan Lazard away from that room, and it's a pretty bad. I mean, it's bad with Alan Lazard. You take Alan Lazard away from that room, and if you're a Jets fan, you're thinking, I mean, yeah, not like Alan Lazard's a world beater by any means, but that's probably their wide receiver 2 or 3. So what exactly are they? They're in a different spot, I guess you could argue. Maybe they shouldn't be in the same position as the Steelers, but if they're legitimately trying to be as good as they possibly can be, what business do they have trading Alan Lazard away from that depth chart?
Yeah. Let's hope that's the case, because I don't want any part of Alan Lazard. Let him stay in New York.
Well, Dave, you could get your dream come true. We could trade for Alan Lazard and, maybe trade away Roman Wilson or one of those guys to get him.
I wouldn't trade Roman Wilson for Alan Lazard. I mean, as much as I'm down on Roman Wilson, I'm not going.
I was told something over this weekend that you guys might find interesting, and how I am about sharing information and stuff. I'm pretty coy about it, but I'll throw this out there because I really trust where it was coming from. I think they want to sign Gabe Davis, but I think they're waiting. I think they're waiting until a little bit further in the summer to see where the knee's at. I think the most attractive thing about him is going to be the salary. He's like the Russell Wilson from last year, but as a receiver in terms of the contract that he's going to get. I actually think the thought is, are we going to be able to sign him? I think they're thinking, are the Saints going to be in play, who he visited with as well? The San Francisco going to be in play, who visited with him as well? And the Giants going back with Brian Daboll, who he had as his OC in Buffalo. I think that would probably be the one that I would guess out of the 4 would be the most competition, just because of the familiarity level there, if it's just those 4 teams. But I think there's other teams that could be involved. Funny enough, I'm not saying Gabe Davis should be this hot commodity, but I think the attraction is going to be that salary more than anything else. And I don't know. I think, and I said this on here, I think last time I was on here, I've certainly tweeted about it. I'm not the biggest fan of Gabe Davis's game. I think he is a better fit for this offense than he is actual good player.
I mean, is he the best case scenario at this point?
Depending on how you feel about,
I
would say depending on how you feel about where Amari Cooper's at, what is the reason that last year went so bad for Amari? Because I think you could chalk up the massive increase in drops to he had a bad wrist injury that he was playing through most of last year. So if it was just the drop percentage, that's fine. But you watch the tape too, and he wasn't separating the Amari Cooper of even just the previous year in 2023, where he had a really nice year with Joe Flacco in Cleveland. Everything was contested for him in Buffalo. It looked like life was very hard for him there. And then all of a sudden he's taking a back seat in the playoffs where he's not getting any snaps. So depending on how you feel about Amari Cooper potentially being better in 25 than 24, you could make that case. But in terms of free agency, I think so. But best case scenario to me would be they can pry one of the guys away from the Packers that we've talked about. But I don't know that I see that happening.
That's the one we've all pinned our hopes on, I think, is the Green Bay situation, just watching and waiting that. But that's one injury away, and that dries up real fast, and then you're back to Gabe Davis again.
Our man Robert here our man Robert, Mr. All Caps, brings up the other name kind of in free agency. Although, thank you for not going all caps on that one, Robert. Keenan Allen.
That one. Yeah.
Keenan
Yeah.
Allen.
I threw that one out there because I thought he'd be a good fit with Aaron specifically. But I mean, unless something changes mindset wise, doesn't sound like Pittsburgh's necessarily a place he wants to play. I wonder how much of that is a potential conversation he had with his good friend Mike Williams about his.
Are they good friends?
Yeah, good
that
point.
Would do it.
Yeah.
Well, he was treated better in Pittsburgh than New York, right? I mean, in New York, he was really pissed. Oh, maybe not. You talk about the Aaron Rodgers thing. I just put it all together in my head. Sorry, I'm slow.
Both. Yeah, both. I mean, I'm thinking Mike was with Aaron in New York, and then he came here, and but like, I mean, still, I think that he would say last year was pretty much just a wash for him in general, both quarterback play and where he was just not a good fit in either spot. And like primarily Aaron, but also just things weren't very fruitful for Mike in general in Pittsburgh either. So I'm just thinking maybe a conversation with Keenan Allen could have steered him away from the situation.
It's possible.
I wonder if Aaron could have a conversation. Hey, look, man, you're a borderline Hall of Famer. I am a Hall of Famer. Hey, just because Mike Williams didn't work out doesn't mean you're not going to work out. Or if Keenan would even be open to that conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other thing, like I know he played in Chicago last year, which obviously was a drastic difference, like the environment for him that he was playing in. Maybe he was like, man, that cold weather shit, that sucked. I'm not doing that again.
Back to the Chargers where it's nice and warm.
Yeah.
The Chargers could sorely use him. Although I kind of wonder now with Ladd McConkey where he would exactly fit in that offense because, we always make the point he's huge, but he's also lines up in the slot a lot.
Yeah. Ladd they'd have to feel good about Ladd taking more snaps on the outside, whether it is from Mike Williams, who they brought back, or Quentin Johnston, who's not been very good. They just drafted Trey Harris in the second round though, too, who you got to find snaps for. So I don't necessarily see that. I don't know where the best spot is for Keenan Allen, but he doesn't think it's Pittsburgh.
What's your thoughts on Roman Wilson? I mean, I've been pretty hard on him. The jump on the moving train thing didn't do wonders for his, the fans part of it. What's your thoughts on Roman Wilson?
I am curious to see him in a game setting to see if he's expanded on his very limited route tree that he ran at Michigan. They didn't ask him to do a whole lot. I think intrigued probably the best word for me to use because the stuff that he was doing, all the crossers and stuff that Michigan had him running, stuff across the middle of the field, that's stuff that like should work with Aaron. Like, I think that there's a very real chance that he is an Aaron Rodgers type of receiver. It's going to depend on if he can win right off the line of scrimmage. Like, we got to see that release package, I think, be a lot better than it was in college. But just looking at the types of things that he did at Michigan in terms of the routes they had him run, whether it was quick outs or quick ins, doing a lot of sturdy work over the middle, like that's stuff that's won with Aaron in the past. And I think that there's a real chance that he ends up being a security blanket for him. I don't think that's going to result in him being like this massive yards per catch guy or anything like that. But if he develops into a younger version of Keenan Allen, where he's like a chains mover from the slot, I think Aaron's going to fall in love with that. So we'll see. But I'm definitely intrigued. But this is another one of those things. I do so many podcasts. I don't know if it was last time I was on here or if it was a different podcast. But like, these are things that it should be, hey, if this happens, that's great. But the unfortunate reality is the Steelers have so many of those that they're banking on. It's not just if it happens, great. It's we need this to happen if we're going to be good this year.
Yeah, it's the biggest black hole in the team right now is wide receiver too. I know Zach Azani said it's Calvin Austin, but I'm not buying that either.
I mean, listen, I can appreciate a guy talking up his own guy and stuff like that. Yeah. And if Zach truly feels that way, so be it. But I can tell you the organization doesn't. The organization's not doing the due diligence they have now for 18, 19 months if they felt like Calvin Austin was the wide receiver too.
It's a great point that they've been kicking over every stone in the league trying to get on the wide receiver in here for the last, like you said, 18 months. Mm-hmm. Oh, what else do we got?
Unless they feel like Roman Wilson is kind of the wide receiver too, just going to kind of blossom through training camp and into the preseason that you see him on the field. I don't know that I believe that's going to happen, but I'm almost curious if Zach, if you feel like maybe there's some organizational hope that Roman Wilson blossoms in the
I mean, I can tell you when he was coming out, like I don't know how much the lost year has impacted the feeling, internally about how they feel about him. But when they drafted him, I this is why I said I felt like he was a Steelers guy. Like somebody asked me going into the draft in 24, what's receiver most likely to be a Steeler? And I said Roman Wilson. Now I would have thought it was going to be in the second round if they would have taken him, which I wouldn't have done. I just thought that's about where he was going to go. But I knew Azani loved him. I knew Arthur Smith loved him. I'm not necessarily sure how Mike felt about him, but like for a position coach and the offensive coordinator to feel as strongly as I knew they felt about him, felt pretty good about him. How did the last year impact that? I'm not entirely sure, but like the other thing that I'll say about it is whether it is him or whether it is Calvin, whatever ends up happening there, again, like can either one of them fill that role on the outside? It's like you can have a wide receiver too that can primarily line up in the slot, but you're still like, where's that Z role coming from? Like, is one of them going to be able to blossom into that? Because I'm not seeing that. Like, I think you can have their type of production work as a number 2 or 3 option if Roman Wilson ends up becoming. And I don't think this is something for this year either, by the way. I should say that. Like, if you're talking about Roman Wilson eventually being a number 2 pass catcher, like that's pretty lofty expectations in general, but certainly not in 2025, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
Just in terms of like slot, like the alignment of them too, who's that other guy that's playing on the outside? Because I don't see either one of them being able to take on that role.
I almost wonder if you could do something in like a scissors concept on the left side with, DK and Pat, and then have Austin drag across the formation as even though he's out there on wide receiver 2, run that drag and just kind of open it up as Pat and DK cross out there and see if he can get in space 5-10 yards. Because Rodgers can hit that on the run. I mean, Randall Cobb made a living out of catch and drag routes.
Yeah. Yeah. So like a lot of people have mentioned that because even if you sign Keenan Allen, right, that's another guy that's primarily in the slot. Like he's not necessarily going to be an option for you at Z, but he can do stuff in like, condensed splits and maybe off or something as like a move Z. But honestly, that's why you look at this roster right now and people that are talking about Robert Woods playing, like, I don't think he's going to touch Van Jefferson snaps. But the concern right now is, like he's probably that other guy right now when they split out, like go a split set, and you're talking about a second wide receiver on the outside, just because whether it's him or Ben Skoranek, you need a second receiver that can block on the outside when you're not in those condensed formations. So
play Skoranek.
What do you make of these?
I mean, out of the options they have, like
it's
the
bad
way the
when
roster
you say
looks right
Skoranek's
now,
a good option. It's like, oh my god,
with
what are we
the
doing?
options that are on the roster right now, I would probably play him over Robert Woods, but I don't know that they would. And I'll be honest, like I'll give them the benefit of the doubt just because of where we're at on the calendar right now. If you ask me, I still think they're going to end up signing a receiver or acquiring a receiver, I should say. But like I would have said the same thing last year.
Yeah.
So
that's what we keep going back to is like we thought they were going to do that all the way until they got Mike Williams out of desperation at the trade deadline.
Yeah.
We don't see pigeonholed like last year, though. I mean, didn't it feel like Ayuk or bust for most of the summer? Whereas here, I still think there's options. There's lots of nobody's committed to any.
It's not good options though. It's all terrible options.
They're
the
better
hopes
than
of
Mike
Amari
Williams.
Cooper, or this is
better than Mike Williams at the trade deadline, though.
Well, yeah.
I definitely hear where Bob's coming from, but like to be honest with you, going back to last year, the information like they were turning over stones last year. It's just none of them were like as publicized as the Brandon Ayuk thing, where it made it seem like they were certainly like all eggs in that basket. But the conversation about Ayuk started because they called about Debo. Like they were trying to trade for Debo during the draft last year. If they would have been willing to part with pick 51, which thank goodness they didn't, and drafted Zach Frazier instead, Debo Samuel would have been a Steeler. That was their ask to trade for him. And then because of the conversation about Debo Samuel, the ball got rolling about Ayuk, who was looking for a new contract. So that's how that even got rolling. But like they asked about Terry McLaurin last year. They asked about Christian Kirk last year. And then that trade would have went down instead of Mike Williams if Christian Kirk didn't break his collarbone. So like, I think that they were still turning over stones last year. But I understand what you're saying, where maybe it is a little bit of a wider net for them to cast this year. There's also, at least at this point in the calendar, like Dave's point, not necessarily the caliber of player that we're talking about either, like there was last year. Unless you want to talk about Terry McLaurin, which isn't happening. So
yeah, that's a dream scenario that's not going to happen. What do you think of the Kyle Pitts, Jonnu Smith stuff? Are they thinking about getting funky on the outside and playing them out as a Z? And what are we doing here? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I get Kyle Pitts, I guess, could do some of that job. Jonnu, I mean, if you going back to like having Calvin and Roman on the roster, if you didn't have one or both those guys that you felt pretty good about as a slot option, and you were like, let's get Jonnu as like a bigger slot and kind of not have a receiver fill that role, then it makes sense. But with those guys already here, I think Jonnu doesn't really do that for me. Like, I understand the thought process just getting talented pass catchers in here, but I think, for a guy that played 24% of his snaps, isn't good in line. I don't see it with Jonnu. And I mean, I'm not saying I see it with Kyle Pitts either, but Kyle Pitts, at least in Arthur Smith's offense, we have seen him literally line up on the outside in the past. So not something I would do. Again, they're asking for like a day 2 pick. He's looking for a contract that pays him more than the production that he's put up to this point.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But I mean, they definitely have had a conversation about both, more seriously about Jonnu. And I think that that's just because, again, going back to kind of the way that these things work, you call a team and you're just like having a general conversation about what they'd be willing to move. It starts with Tyreek Hill, Jalen Ramsey, whatever. And they go, well, Jonnu Smith's due a new contract, and end up having a conversation about him. Obviously his agent, who's trying to get him a new contract, goes, hey, Pittsburgh's asked about him. Let's put that out there to Adam Schefter.
Yeah.
So I think in general, when two teams talk, it's more of a general conversation, but there's some posturing from whoever side it benefits more to put it out there saying, hey, it's specifically about this player.
Well, let me ask you a question, kind of shifting gears. If we go back to Green Bay for a minute, do we feel like it'd be Wicks or Dobbs who might be available?
Dobbs. I think that there's already been some stuff within the organization. We saw him get suspended from the team for a period of time last year. He's got 1 year left as opposed to 2 years with Wicks. From the Steelers side of things, Dobbs actually played a year with Aaron Rodgers. So there's at least a little bit of familiarity there on that side, but that wouldn't necessarily affect Green Bay's willingness to move him. I think it's more about 1 year left as opposed to 2. And like I said, I'm not saying that there's been bad blood since or anything like that. But I also think the role that he fills, like Dontavian Wicks is one of the easiest separators in the league. Now, I know he's had some issues with drops and stuff like that, but like that guy, the guy that can separate easier, to me, should be more coveted. And they don't necessarily have a guy that replicates that skill set on the roster. When you get Christian Watson back healthy, I know that's going to be some time. He tore his ACL pretty late in the season. You brought in Matthew Golden. Like, I could see more guys on that roster that could fill a Romeo Dobbs role. Dontavian Wicks, there's not anybody that can separate like him on that team. So I think he would be the one that they would covet more.
And Dobbs does have a lot of upside. I mean, I loved him coming out of the draft. So, I mean, although he's kind of a head case, which, means he would be right at home here. But
he does play receiver. Yeah.
What's the compensation for him? Are they looking for second rounder for him, third rounder for him?
Well, I can tell you that the conversation, or at least from what I've heard, when they called, the Steelers were like offering a 4th for Wicks or a 5th for Dobbs. So clearly they wouldn't be willing to do it for that. So I don't, at least a 4th. I guess that's the easiest way to answer that, because they didn't do it for a 5th. I don't know. I mean, a 4th for 1 year of Dobbs, I could definitely see myself being willing to do that. I think like day 2 is where you get. Where you get a little bit, because then if you're trading a 3rd for him, you traded George Pickens for Romeo Dobbs, and you got to give Dobbs a new contract if you see him being part of the future. So I don't know that I would want to do that. A 4th I could certainly be talked into. I could see why Green Bay wouldn't for anything less. So it's another one of those like things where I'll say it's a tough deal to do from both sides for now, because sure, Green Bay, when healthy, is going to have a plethora of receivers, but they don't have to make this decision until like the trade deadline, basically, whenever Christian Watson's going to be coming back, because he's going to be out of the fold to start the season. So I know that people are looking at that room and saying they got to move somebody. Well, not necessarily right now. So like they have no reason to trade somebody right now. They might not even have a reason to trade somebody after training camp. They could take this thing all the way to whenever Christian Watson's going to be back and ready to come back. So
right,
I think hold out hope on that one's. Yeah.
You almost hope Omar gooses them then, because if he's been saying 5th and they're saying no, you come back with the 4th, because we have an extra 4th, and just do it. And just, or I loved it. I mean, personally, I'd pay a 3rd for Wicks, because you got him for 2 years.
Yeah.
And you got 3 thirds.
They're not going to trade
Yeah.
Wes. I don't see it.
I think if you offered him a third, they'd kind of have to.
Oh, they got 2 years of control of him. They don't have to do anything.
Yeah, I think
Zach said, the separator thing. He's close to elite at that. I know he's got the drops like Zach said too.
fourth highest open score. According ESPN tracks that, and to be honest with you, like I'll push it out there if it fits my narrative, and I want to put out some propaganda. I have no clue how the hell that stuff is like figured out, but yeah, like so. But I think the other thing too is like, yes, they spent a first round pick on Golden. Yes, they spent a third round pick on Savion Williams. Can we see those guys in pads first before we make a decision about who's the odd man out in the receiver room? Like, I think that's got to be from Green Bay's side what they're saying.
I think you're right. Any trade with Green Bay is the deadline. I wouldn't move any of those guys beforehand.
Les Golden is a beast in the
preseason. And the other thing with Savion, like a lot of people talked about this, there were teams that wanted him to do running back drills. Like, if they view him as just like some gadget guy and he's not even actually going to be running a bunch of routes, like, okay, so consider him like a third or fourth running back, depending on how many they're going to carry. And then again, your wide receiver number is vastly different from the way that you were looking at it. If you're not including Christian Watson, not including Savion. So I don't know.
Interesting.
When you look around,
I actually think. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, when you look around the league, there's a lot of teams that could use another wide receiver. It's not just the Steelers.
Oh, sure.
It's definitely a seller's market.
That's why we need a team. We've been seeing a lot of these, going back to just yesterday, and I'm going to bring another sport in here with Rafael Devers being traded from the Red Sox,
I don't want to talk
where it came out like they didn't even shop him. Yeah, we need a team to like not shop a receiver and for whatever reason just be like, hey, Pittsburgh's been asking around. Let's see if they want this receiver we're going to trade and not tell anybody else that we're doing it, which is actually how the Geno Smith trade went down too.
Really?
Yeah.
You got to be you got to be extremely lucky to get that. Though I don't.
Yeah, no team. Because Pete Carroll was the coach. I get okay. So the legend goes, and this is from a conversation with somebody that's actually like, I'm not talking about Pittsburgh connected, like an NFL insider that's broken a lot of stuff. Literally, I was DMing with them about this. They'll send me stuff if it's like related to Pittsburgh, but I had to ask them about Geno because like quarterback at the time, obviously we didn't know what was going on with Aaron. So I was like, hey, was like Pittsburgh in on this at all? And they're like, nobody was in on it because they didn't know he's getting traded. Like Pete Carroll called Seattle. And I'm assuming Geno probably told him, hey, their like contract talks are going nowhere here. So you should probably call Seattle and see. And they were like, would you take a third round pick for him? And John Schneider was like, yeah. Deal went down.
Wow.
Like the contract talks were not going anywhere with him, apparently. I don't think they offered him, they wouldn't go more than 30.
Yeah, and I like Geno Smith. I like Geno Smith a lot.
Yeah, I do too. I could also see, he's worth more than that per year for sure. But I think the thinking with them was like, okay, he is getting a little bit older. Maybe we're going in a different direction. And with Sam, yes, he's making like 37.5 or something this year, but it's the only guaranteed year on the contract. So, I could see why they went that direction. But to me, it's a harder sell if you're trying to sell that you're winning now. But they also trade DK Metcalf, so I don't know that they are trying to sell that they're winning now.
Yeah.
That's a weird organization. They did some weird moves.
It is. Yeah.
Hey, you never know. Somebody, something happens that we need a fit. That's what we need. Somebody's got to throw a fit and we can swoop in.
We wanted to, you brought up receivers there for a second where I thought you were going to ask about it's like other teams to watch. I keep getting told to watch New England, and it's not necessarily going to be like a world beater that's available there, but like you look at that roster, Stephon Diggs, as long as they can keep him away from whatever that pink stuff was in that bag.
I was gonna say, they trying to trade Diggs already.
They signed Matt Collins in free agency. They spent a third round pick on Kyle Williams, who was one of my draft crushes. And they got like Pop Douglas on that roster as well, who's like the ideal wide receiver 4 and returner in the league. But then you got Jalen Polk, who was a rookie last year and was not very good.
The media crushes them out here. The media crushes Polk out here. They do not like it.
Not surprised. You got Kendrick Bourne, who's like making legit money and they can move off from. And to be honest, that's the name that I've been told to watch. And then Javon Baker, who they spent a 4th round pick on last year and did not do very much in his rookie season. So like something's got to give within that room too. All right, I'll see you guys. I'm heading out.
Is Kendrick Bourne better than anyone we've heard up to this point?
He is.
Say yes.
in terms of a fit, like he could definitely do the job of a Z, and he's had at least production that we've seen, and we're not like saying it's all projection like it is with a Roman Wilson. I could be talked into it. He's certainly not, again, like you're not talking about a world beater here or anything like that. But if he's healthy, and that's a big if when you look at the body of work over the last few seasons, I think he could do the job of a Z in an Arthur Smith offense.
I think when you compare him to like Amari Cooper's and the one-legged Gabe Davis's and all this, I mean,
now here's the thing I'm worried about with Kendrick Bourne. He has his own clothing brand, and he is very invested in this on TikTok, and I'm not sure how I feel about it.
Really? What are you trying to tell us? Yeah.
No, I'm just saying he's got an off-field passion that's taken up some of his time.
Oh, I see.
He's not always in the playbook. He's not always watching film. So, the old school people, they might not love the fact that Kendrick Bourne's going live on TikTok to sell clothing.
That's a good point.
Chase Claypool all over again.
Instead of dancing, he's sewing clothes. Yeah.
Maybe I think more Juju than Chase Claypool.
Yeah.
This is where we're at. It's someone who's gonna have, whoever we get's gonna have warts, whether it's hawking clothes or recuperating from a knee or maybe cooked. It's when you wait till June to acquire a wide receiver too, this is what you get.
Trent, I don't know what all you guys do at minicamp, but what the offensive line look like?
How's Broderick Jones doing? Is he good?
He's looking good. He's looking good.
Yeah.
Well, Trent, you got here just in time for us to do our Hall of Fame thing. Troy Polamalu was in the news back in James Harrison saying he was one of the most impactful defensive players he's ever seen, and he should be in the Hall of Fame. Do you guys agree? I'm going to tell you right off the top, I'm a huge James Harrison guy. He is one of the best defenders I've ever seen play. That short time, 3 or 4 year run that he had, I don't think there was anybody better. So I think he should be in the Hall of Fame. I'm a tough grader, but James Harrison was ridiculous.
His numbers kind of support it too, right? I mean, like there's guys who've probably got worse numbers than James Harrison that's already in. I mean, he was, for that time period, he was one of the most dominant edge rushers, one of the most dominant players on the defensive side of the ball for quite a while. Brings that intimidation factor. I mean, he's a large part of the reason why the game changed. He and Ryan Clark kind of really changed the way the NFL played today. I mean, like people were scared to death to run across the middle in hopes that, he's not dropping into coverage on that play because, we've seen lights can go out real quick if he's in the area.
Even Troy a little bit took his shots too. That was even Tomlin said in an interview one time, he said that defense was different. They made rule changes because of that defense, and it was.
Yep. On Ben's podcast, he said the 2010 Steelers were the reason for the player safety policies that came out in the NFL. And if you remember, if you ever get a chance, go back and watch the Harrison appearance on Ben. He talks about the Mohamed Massaquoi hit, and for those of you who don't remember, he literally almost killed this guy, and he said flat out on the Ben podcast, if I'd known I was going to get fined $75,000 for taking his head off, I'd have gotten my money's worth.
He said he gave him 60%.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
I mean, literally 60% almost ended a man's life.
Yeah, I think James Harrison should be in the Hall of Fame. And
100%.
Other than like just the stats, the surface stats, which I understand largely within just like a 5-year window that we're talking about from like 07 to 11, probably.
Yep.
I think the moments, right? Like, because my big thing is, can you tell the story of the NFL without this player's impact? And you look at the impact that James Harrison had within that time, the moments that he had in the playoffs, maybe the greatest or one of the greatest moments in the Super Bowl with his interception against Kurt Warner. It's hard to tell the story of the NFL without James Harrison. And I think for that reason alone, along with the stats, obviously accompanying it, he should be in the Hall of Fame.
And the personal story of overcoming what he overcame just to get there. I mean, yes, he only had a 5-year prime, but bottom line is those 5 years were pretty great. Now, I do believe Harrison should get in the Hall of Fame. As far as Steelers who are not in, who should be in, I got him fourth on my list. But to me, he should be a Hall of Famer. But there's a lot of, to me, there's three pretty big names ahead of him.
We'll get to those names in a minute, but I just
Yeah.
want to stay on the James Harrison thing for a second.
Okay.
It's just he was so dominant. That Ravens game that everyone talks about, where what he had like 3 sacks and a couple strip, fumble recoveries. I don't, Bob. I know we're a little older. We go back a ways. I still think that 5-year stretch is the best 5-year stretch I've ever seen a defensive player have. I don't think
a little older.
Yeah, a little bit. You just had a birthday.
When we get to my list in a minute, there's a guy just ahead of him on that list who I think had a better 5-year stretch for the Steelers as a defensive player.
Yeah, but that was before TV, right?
No.
I think the James Harrison thing, I worry a little bit about him getting kind of the Barry Bonds effect. Like, as far as Hall of Fame voting, like he's going to get this negative image, and Hall of Fame voters are going to hold that against him. I think that could be something that's going to hurt him. But like, it's hard to deny what he's put out on the field and what he put on tape and just the impact he had on games. I mean, like, there weren't very many guys who came off an edge and just left tackles had nothing to do with him. There's nothing they could do. And that guy, when he got in his prime and in his zone, you couldn't stop him. He kind of I think he might have been one of the linebackers who redefined what the edge, that 3-4 defensive end really is here in Pittsburgh, because he was better at dropping into coverage than some of the guys that came before him. I mean, Kevin Green didn't really do some of those things. Yeah. You didn't see Greg Lloyd doing some of those things to that level. I mean, he really kind of defined what it was to play that position the way, like, now TJ, you see TJ having success dropping in coverage. You see Alex having success dropping in coverage. Like, that was never, like, even really looked at that way, I don't think, before James Harrison started to find success doing those things. So I think he really changed a lot, not just in the game, but like for the Steelers defense and what it was setting up to be in the future too.
Since you brought his name up, that's the guy who I have just ahead of James Harrison, because I will tell you, if you watch football, if back in the early 90s, Kevin Green was he was the rusher. Lloyd did drop, not a lot, but he did. And Lloyd is the most intimidating football player I have ever seen on a football field. And I love Jack Lambert. He's probably my all-time favorite Steeler. Lloyd was scarier. Lloyd was about hurting people. And I think that is what has cost him the Hall of Fame, because his 5-year run, and I also think Super Bowl 30 really hurts him, because if the Steelers win that Super Bowl, I think he is in the Hall of Fame. Like Harrison had a 5-year dominant run, but he had a great running partner in Green. I mean, defensive player of the year. I mean, if you go back to that era, people weren't scared of him. I live in Jacksonville. They talked about at length when Steelers Week how dirty a player Greg Lloyd was. He wasn't really a dirty player. He just was, no bones about it. Like Harrison, I want to hurt you, but he took it to that next level. So Lloyd, to me, I love Harrison. I think they both should be in, but Lloyd to me is just a teeny tiny bit more intimidating than Harrison was. Probably because he was bigger and stronger.
I don't know if I agree with that, Bob.
I'd go bigger. I don't know about stronger.
Yeah, I don't think there's a man stronger in the NFL. Did you see his 30 for 30 and the weightlifting things he did and all that stuff? And Bill Cowell was even afraid to take him out of the game. He told the position coach to do it, and his position coach said, "No, you do it." And then they just left him on the field because neither one of them wanted to confront him.
I don't feel like yes, he was dominant. And yes, lifting weight strong. Yeah, of course, Harrison. I mean, Harrison probably the strongest guy in the history of the NFL. But that being said, just that intimidation factor lining up across, I think people were intimidated by Harrison. You feared for your life when Lloyd was on the field.
And since we're on the Hall of Fame thing, we might as well do Hines Ward for a little bit too. We were talking before we got on. I don't see Hines Ward as a Hall of Famer. I just don't. I love him. Thought he was a great Steeler, one of those gritty guys, but he just doesn't do it for me. I'm a tough grader for the Hall of Fame. I think Deion Sanders is right. There should be levels if you're going to let these people in, and there should be like an elite level and a decent level, because you talk about all those great Dan Marino, Deion Sanders, Joe Montana. And then Hines Ward's it doesn't fit. And there's a lot of guys like that, to be fair, that are
So what's your criteria for a receiver getting in?
It's more the eye test, Bob, than compiling stats. I mean, Hines Ward stuck around a long time. He's one of those guys that, compiled stats. He was very good. If there's a Hall of very good, Hines Ward's in. But for me,
Hines compiled stats with half a career with, at best, substandard quarterback play.
it's a good point. His beginning of his career was, Cordell and that group, but
Hines is probably one of the tough ones because wide receiver, I feel like, is one of those positions where there's a lot of Hall of Fame worthy players that don't make it because it's just a long line to wait in. I mean, there's guys that have been waiting for forever, it seems like, that have been deserving for a really, really long time. And part of the Hall of Fame really kind of is, and this is also another thing, just to make another point about James Harrison, that longevity is a factor in the Hall of Fame voting in a lot of times, I think. So, like, Hines does have that working in his favor to some degree because you could say he was consistent throughout his entire career, basically. And I think the consistency thing is something that you can look at and say, yeah, he deserves to be in. Now, was he like the flashiest guy on the field? No. I mean, you could look at the Megatrons and the Randy Mosses and those guys. Like, you just knew those guys were Hall of Fame caliber players when you watched them. You didn't think that when Hines was playing, I don't think. It took him compiling all of the stats before it's like a conversation, right? So, yeah. I don't know. His longevity and his consistency might get him in. I just think that's a really, really tough position to get into the Hall of Fame because of the laundry list of players that deserve it so much.
Well, and just before Zach goes real quick, 15th all-time in receptions, one of only 15 players in the NFL history to have 1,000 yards, 19th in receiving touchdowns, and hey, hang on one second. I'm just waiting for Pro Football Reference to populate so I get it exactly right. And Hines was 30th in yards. That's a pretty good resume. Plus a Super Bowl MVP. Plus you had to change, the NFL had to change the rules because he took people's heads off. That's a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, I think it's in one way very similar to the Harrison case because he did have the postseason moments as well, like Bob is mentioning. On the opposite end of that, it wasn't just a short run of dominance that we're talking about. It is the longevity that was on his side here that makes the case for it. Regardless of, this is one that I am very on the fence about, and I'll actually answer it, I promise. But I think the reason that this one is just the toughest for me, or why I am on the fence, is because of what Dave said too. Like, when I would watch Hines Ward, I don't know that felt like I was watching a Hall of Fame player. But then you get to the end of the career and you look at the numbers stacked up, and there's guys that are in the Hall of Fame that haven't put up the numbers that he has, and there's going to probably be guys that don't get in that might even do better, though, and that's the other side of it. I just feel like if it was going to happen, and I know what Bob mentioned afterwards, but at least within like the standard Hall of Fame voting, I think that ship has sailed, because I think he's going to continue to get pushed down the ballot and pushed down in terms of where he ranks statistically as we continue to watch a passing league with wide receivers compiling more and more stats. So I think that it might take getting to what's it called again?
The Veterans
the
Committee,
veteran, the Veterans Committee, for him to have more of a shot. I don't think it's going to happen within just like the standard practice.
I see a couple of people nodding to Andy Russell. That's fifth on my list. He also, if you followed any of my writing.
By the way, to answer though, I would put Hines in, because I think if you are, in my opinion, the best at something, you should be in the Hall of Fame. To me, Hines is the best blocking wide receiver that I've ever seen.
That's a good point, actually. I mean, man, would he fit into this team right now? The Steelers dying for a blocking wide receiver too. He'd be like something from heaven for Mike Tomlin.
I look at a guy like Torrey Holt not being in right now, and would you put Torrey Holt in over Hines Ward? I think Torrey Holt he had a pretty dominant stretch there too.
Yeah, I think Torrey Holt was more talented for sure.
But he was kind of wide receiver too on the Rams.
It's greatest show in turf though versus
Yeah.
a run
The Marvin
first
Harris
team
Reggie Wayne thing.
Yeah.
And this
Yeah.
is my number one guy, Greg. You'll be happy to know that. We could do a whole episode on LC Greenwood. That guy, Steelers all-time sack leader until TJ and Cam passed him. Harrison almost passed him, but he left the team and didn't get there. All-time leader in sacks in the Super Bowl for a very long time. Sacked 5, and he's still in second. He's 5 sacks in 4 Super Bowls. You know who he sacked 4 out of those 5 times? Roger Staubach in Super Bowl 10. He should have been the MVP of that game. And bottom line is, if LC gets the MVP like he should have gotten, Lynn Swan's not in the Hall of Fame, and LC Greenwood is.
I think LC does get in with the Veterans Committee at some point.
I can't believe
think
that
that's
we're at this point. This is the one where it's like a complete no-brainer for me that he should.
There's only 2 all 1970s first-team defensive players who are not in. Harvey Martin, who should be. He's a Cowboy. I hate him, but he belongs. LC Greenwood is, look, he played with Joe Green, and he is the guy who's the Steelers' sack leader, and he retired before Joe Green. He dominated, but remember, in the 70s, they only dropped back 20 times a game. He put up a sack record that held until T.J. Watt and Cam Hayward passed it.
Did they not count sacks from some of his career too, if I'm not mistaken? When did they start counting sacks? Wasn't it
82?
So did they go back and retroactively?
Yeah, retroactively they gave, and they had enough stats to where the guys in the 70s kind of got their sacks. They had enough stats and video to do it. Some of the numbers from the 60s, like Big Daddy Lipscomb with 20 in one year and Deacon Jones, all those 20 sack years. Yeah, maybe. But, let's face it. Those guys threw the ball 15 times a game. You're telling me he sacked a guy on 15% of the snaps?
Ratio, sack to drop back ratio. And Andy Russell, I'm old as fuck, but he's still before my time. He was... He tapped out in the mid 70s. I was just a young man back then, so I can't give you just reading the stats. And you look at his bio on Google on Wikipedia. It's ridiculous. He's got a bunch of all pro.
Yeah, arguably the best Steelers linebacker core ever: Lambert, Hammond, Russell. Arguably.
All right, let's do our breakout 2025 Steelers. Who wants to go first on this one? I compiled a couple of guys. I think Zach guy's Pat Frymuth with Aaron Rodgers. He might benefit the most.
Yeah,
with Aaron Rodgers here.
Yeah, I'm not allowed to say his name. I don't want to be biased. The first name that I want to mention is Peyton Wilson, second-year linebacker. A lot of talk about him taking on, and we'll see if he can put this on his plate and shoulder this. But he's going to get a shot to be a 3-down linebacker this year. I kind of thought based off the contract that Malik Harrison was given that the hope was that he was going to fill that E-Rob void, but at least, through mini camp and the way that they're talking about him, both the coaches and Peyton himself has said no, I'm trying to take that job. I'm trying to be a 3-down guy. And he's going to get a shot to do so. Love the coverage chops that he brings to the table. Great athlete. I know that there was a lot of skepticism because of health. Well, he was able to play a full season in the NFL last year, and hopefully that injury bug is something that he left behind in college. So, Peyton Wilson, second year, I'm very high on him.
Yeah, injury is the only thing that's going to keep him from becoming a really good player in this league because he's got everything else. He's got the speed, talent. I'm with you 100% on Peyton Wilson. Who else we got? Anybody else? I know a lot of people bring up Caleb Johnson. That's going to definitely be one. I know me and Trent are definitely
that's
my
guy. That's my guy. I'll say Roman Wilson ends up being the starting slot over Calvin Austin. I think they get a wide receiver too. I think they get a wide receiver too. Let's pump the brakes on Zach Azani's comment here.
He's wide receiver too.
He's get that locked down for the next month and a half. I think Roman Wilson's probably a guy who ends up being the starting slot and probably puts up 600 yards receiving, a little more than what Calvin did last year.
Ooh, that would be something.
I'm going to say I'm going to give it to a whole group. I think the offensive line. I think Broderick is going to be a revelation on the left-hand side. I think Furtado is going to be awesome on the right side. And I think Zach Frazier, it's hard to say because he's so damn good. It's hard to say it's going to be a breakout year, But I think he takes that step into I'm the all-pro center. Creed Humphrey is great. I love Creed Humphrey. But I think he's certainly the best center now. By the end of the year, I think he's better than Linderbaum in Baltimore. And I think it's Creed Humphrey and him battling out for the top 2 centers. So I like that. And I also think Mason McCormick's going to take a big step. And I just need Isaac to be Isaac of 2 years ago. And I think we have a very good offensive line. I think our offensive line is going to be the strength this year.
That's a
Dave, what do
very
you think about
optimistic.
Aaron Rodgers?
Yeah.
Breakout star.
Breakout player of the year. He's never had one, to be fair. Like, he's never had one with the Steelers.
No, with the Steelers, yeah. The Steelers haven't had one at that position
Or-
since 2017, probably.
Smitty's going under the radar. 4-time MVP breakout season.
You know what? No,
Man.
if the offensive line is great, he's not MVP Aaron anymore, but man, could he have a great season if he can just stand back there and doesn't have to dodge? I mean, these receivers all of a sudden look a lot better if he can stand there and wait.
Yeah.
I'm gonna stick on the defensive side here and also give Keanu Benton a shout out. No more Larry Ogunjobi in tow, and I know they spent a first round pick on Derek Harmon, but you're gonna see Keanu Benton play a lot more in base than he had in years past because of Larry Ogunjobi's role on the team. And I think Keanu Benton's been a good player. I know that they've been super high on him, but like the production necessarily hasn't matched. And I think this is a year where, like, would 4.5, 5 sacks be considered a breakout? Maybe not by some people, but I think if you get like those type of pass rush numbers accompanying what else he does for this team, creating havoc and letting other players clean it up, I think we'd look back on that and say like he took a massive step, and that's what I'm expecting from Keanu Benton this year.
I think another guy.
Go ahead, Trent.
I was going to say
Washington. I'm sorry.
Jinx, you owe each other a Coke.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
And not the kind Stephon Diggs had.
Or maybe that kind. Go ahead, Trent.
No, I was just going to say, I think Darius Slay being in the building now could give Joey Porter Jr. a chance to actually break out and be the player that they drafted him to be. I think you get to play the defensive style that fits his play style way, way more frequently, and you might actually get to see the guy that you drafted. So I think he's a guy to watch.
Stole my guy.
I think Joey Porter Jr. has the most possible variance out of any player. He could be breakout or he could be crash out if he can't clean up the holding penalties and all the other stuff. That's the guy to watch, because I agree with you. He could be the breakout star of the defense if he can clean that up. If not,
you could live with some of the penalties if he's being aggressive and it's really affecting a guy. I think it's like the T. Higgins game from last year is the one everybody's going to point to, because it was like, what do you have, 3? And there's probably like 3 more that weren't even called that were blatantly obvious. Like, that's the thing that kind of kills people, because you also, as a corner in this league, you have to learn when to adjust, because they clearly have your number. Like, not only did the player have his number, but the officials had his number, and the flag was just in their hand the entire time. That's something, him being a young player, he needs to understand that, when the game's being called a certain way, you've got to adjust, and you've got to stop. And he didn't learn that last year. But you can live with, if he's got a penalty here and there and he's shutting down an opposing number one, I'm fine with that. I will take 5 yards, I'll take 10 yards, I'll take 15-yard penalties, whatever, if he's shutting down their receivers. But when you're giving up, what do you have? T had 120 yards and like 22,000 yards in penalties. Like, yeah, but pump the brakes.
Big news on that front, though, is he's already talked about matching gloves with opposing teams' jerseys now.
That should help. That should help. It couldn't hurt, right, at this point?
That's a revelation. Who told him that? I mean, it wasn't like the fan base was screaming it from the tops of the fucking hills in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Okay.
I feel like he's got
go
a
ahead,
bullseye in his back from last year. I think referees go into the games with his reputation and start holding. He's got to really.
Yeah, you're gonna have to show. It's weird too, because like, how do you break that? How all of a sudden do you get the refs to stop looking at that and become somebody that can get away with it? I don't know. I feel like it's kind of like it's almost like failing a drug test for the first time in the NFL. Like, there's no reason that you should fail one, but once you do fail one, then you're kind of screwed, because then it is random.
If Darius Slay shows that he's still top level, maybe you let the first game or two, let him be the number one corner and put Joey on the other side. Maybe that's how you get the ref size off of him.
I guess that's possible. I mean,
you know what I think is going to happen? I don't even know. I mean, I guess we'll find out when you have a team that has like a true number one. But I really think that they're going to try to match like the type of receiver as opposed to like the talent level of the receiver. Right. You know what I mean? Like, so like with Cincinnati, it's tough. I'm be curious to see how they defend them. But like in most instances, I think you're going to look at like the bigger bodied guy, and that's like the Joey matchup, and the other guy being the Slay matchup. But that's just me. I'm curious to see if it is like a true number one, number two situation, or if it is just about the archetype of receiver.
I brought up earlier. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Bob. I keep cutting everybody off.
No, go ahead.
Well, let's do Darnell Washington because one of the guys in the chat brought him up, and Aaron Rodgers called him out by name. Wasn't really impressed by him. Is it possible that Darnell Washington has a little breakout season this year? I mean, again, it's the knees that we're all concerned about.
What would be a breakout? Like 2 receiving touchdowns? Like what? What's he have to accomplish?
We need a little more than that.
Because,
we need a little more than that.
I'm just saying, like, I think that the way that Steelers fans talk about this guy, and like, I love Darnell, and if you just listen to the way that I talk about him, you probably think that I don't, because people think like just because I don't think he can be some amazing weapon in the passing game, because he tested much better than like the athlete that he actually is. Like, this dude turns in slow mo. He honestly should have to turn on like 4 ways or something. The way that he moves, he should have like a blinker or something when he's turning. Like, he's not that dude. I don't think he's ever going to be that dude. I think he is very limited by the knee issues that he's had. And I understand, like, you know, he has cut weight. We'll see if that comes into play for him this year and if he can be utilized more. The only thing that I agree with in terms of the utilization is I would like to see him used more in the red zone. Between the 20s, I don't think that there's like this massive like mishandling of Darnell Washington's skill set by the Steelers. I think they're using him perfectly fine, and there's 100% a role for that. Josh Oliver just got like his second near $30 million contract from the Vikings for doing the same stuff that Darnell does for the Steelers. Like, there is certainly a role, in a very massive one, for what Darnell does. He's just not like a number 2 pass catching tight end. That's not what he's going to be. Fans hate my opinion of Darnell because I don't think he could be a guy that ever catches like 50 plus balls.
No, I actually agree 100%. I mean, between the 20s, no problem. In the red zone, what the fuck? I mean, I don't understand. I mean, and I think Aaron Rodgers, when we say what's a breakout, you know, if he catches 30 balls and scores 6 touchdowns, that's a breakout.
100%. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's
like we saw it. We've seen it in the preseason before. Like, literally, I would be giving him opportunities just to like go up and get it. And a lot of times you draw defensive pass interference against those smaller defenders. Like, I think that there's a lot of missed opportunities within the red zone. Between the 20s, I think people are massively misjudging what Darnell Washington's skill set is, or at least has been. I don't know that, like, you know, dropping 15 pounds is going to massively change the way that he moves. He'll have a shot to show it, but I'm not on the same wavelength with these Steelers fans that think he's like, if Pat Fryermuth goes down or something like that, he can replace that skill set. I think they're way off base.
No, he's the opposite of a move tight end. He's a non-move tight end, for sure.
He would have to drop at least another 20 pounds before he becomes mobile again. I mean, he's like, wasn't he like 270 at the combine? And he was playing over 300,
so
last year.
He has topped out, like, he's topped out at 320. At one point, he was 320 pounds.
On the Steelers?
Yes.
What is he
doing? You can see it. I mean, he's standing next to Broderick Jones, and he looked just as big as Broderick Jones was most of the time.
I didn't realize. I know he was big, but Jesus, 320 with bad knees? What is he? What are we doing here?
Well,
I think that's where the conversation came in for him to move to tackle. He already weighed what he needed to weigh to be a tackle. But I mean, like, the Mercedes Lewis was never as big as Darnell Washington is. He was never that big. I mean, he's a big dude.
Has he ever been a tight end at 320? Ever? I don't think so.
Not that I can think of.
The only guy I can really thinking back on tight ends to compare Darnell Washington's size to, but he doesn't have his ability as a pass catcher, is Eric Green. Eric Green was huge. And
He was not
Darnell
anywhere near
Washington
320.
He was 280.
That's fine.
And in the
If Darnell was
late
280.
80s, early 90s, that was like being 500 pounds down.
I actually thought the utilization that they gave Darnell last year outside of the red zone was fine because you have a guy that big, he's not breaking tackles. Dump that dude the ball and let a DB make a life decision. Like at 320 pounds when he's running at you, like you're making life choices at that point. Like the NFL's life insurance policy needs to be paid up before you can make that tackle, okay? I mean, that's a big boy running at you. So, like, how many times did he take a 3-yard dump pass and turn it into, 8 yards? I mean, hell, he falls over forward and it's 7 yards.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to do anything. So, like, I thought the utilization was fine. He doesn't need to be special that way. He's a great blocker.
Yep. We talked about it a little bit, too. That's part of the problem with him because if he's got the ball going over against DBs, they're going to go for his knees. You're going low, and he's already got bad knees. So I think we had talked about maybe the Steelers trying to not put him in that kind of position too often because it's a ticking time bomb with him, especially,
Who the hell's
people
big
running,
enough to tackle Darnell Washington high?
Who?
Who's big enough to tackle
Nobody.
Darnell Washington
That's the point.
high? Yeah.
Very few.
It's
Defensive
crazy.
tackles.
Michael Pierce from Baltimore. At 360
Yeah.
pounds.
And he
That's
retired.
one.
So
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, that's
one
right.
one now.
That's right.
Darnell's world now.
What about guys who could have bad seasons?
I got one
Crash
more
outs.
breakout.
Go
I got
ahead,
one more
breakout.
breakout. Hall of Fame Herbig. And I'm not kidding about this. I think
Bob,
he's
you got to
gonna
start
get,
the fan club. You're the president.
I think he's going to get more snaps this year. I think they're going to rest TJ
Hopefully.
and rest Alex. And his production per snap, he was people not named TJ Watt. He was the guy who caused the most fumbles. I mean, he has got something on that edge. You got to be careful that you don't get caught. You need him on the field on 2nd and 8, 3rd and 7. You got to make sure that they don't have that temptation on 1st and 10 to wash him out in the run. But if you use him the right way, I mean, I would love to see, like I've said this before, I would love to see TJ and Herbig and Alex and Sawyer as a pair and rotate them equally because I think they bring different skill sets to the table. And I think if you put Alex and let's say Sawyer is any good, but if you put Alex and Sawyer out there, who the hell are you going to double team?
You got Robert yelling at us again.
Let me ask you this. So I asked Colin this early last year. I think it was in preseason. If Nick Herbig keeps playing at the clip he's been playing at, does he make Alex expendable?
No.
Where you could trade him?
Not to me.
No, me either.
Be curious what Zach thinks.
I don't think so. I mean, I don't want to say Sawyer was drafted because of the way that they feel about Herbig's run defense, but it certainly is going to give them an option to mask it, like they can have a different body type off of the bench, if you will, to give them a heavier presence and somebody that they trust more to defend the run. I think Herbig would have to take like leaps and bounds this year against the run and prove a lot. And I don't even know that he's necessarily had the opportunity to do so in those situations for them to feel like Alex was expendable.
Did you think Herbig was that bad against the running? And I mean, the Colts game I felt was
I don't
probably the
think-
game that I think that he struggled in.
Yeah.
But I don't think I thought he played really well against the run against like the Chargers, where he played basically the entire game there. I mean, there was other games. I thought he played the run a lot better than everybody's giving him credit for. I honestly, I would, if he has another season like he did, I would trade Alex Highsmith if you get something considerable for him. And I would go into Herbig being my second edge rusher.
I think
He's the only other guy creating pressure outside of TJ Watt and Cam Hayward.
Oh, Alex too, right? I mean,
Alex had, let's see, so he had 2022 had 14 and a half sacks. Since he's had 13 total in 2 years.
yeah.
He has been hurt.
Yeah.
but what's the pressure number? I mean, he's creating pressure. Unless that took a massive dip last year.
I don't have that one in front of
And
me
I
right
don't
now,
know
but I'd be interested to see what it was because I know there's games he had good games, and there was games he disappeared too.
know
To answer your question, in regards about Herbig's run defense, he's played better against it than I thought he would, and it's not necessarily my own evaluation. I am baking in how I know they feel about his skill set into the way that I'm answering that. So I don't think that they trust him to take on that role.
Yeah, can he hold up for a full season?
Yeah.
You know, playing that many snaps too at his size.
Mm-hmm.
It would
I
be
think he's a specialist.
Which is why we're talking about trading Highsmith. If there's a team that's going to give Herbig a much more, a massive opportunity, should he be considered the trade chip? If you're just going to use him as a third edge rusher rotational piece, depending on what that return could be.
Yeah, I think you get more for Alex Highsmith, but
sure. Yeah, but I'm saying
if you could get somebody, yeah.
If what's going to happen here is, Herbig plays out his first contract and then isn't brought back because he wants to go somewhere and be, and I would 100% understand that, on the field way more than he can be here.
I think it'd be a monumental
angle him as a piece.
I think it'd be a monumental mistake to try to make Herbig into an every down player. Number one, he's one of the smallest edges that's just come out of the draft in the last 25 years. But number two, he's good at what he's good at. Why are we trying to jam a guy who's okay against the run in a pinch? All right, he's better than we thought. Why are we trying to make that guy be out there on the running downs? No. Hey, I want you a third and long. I want Herbig in the game. I want him in the game because you're going to throw the ball, and I want Herbig to come off the edge and beat the other tackle. Because if you're dumb enough if Herbig and Watt are on the field at the same time, and you play four guys on TJ's side, Herbig is getting to the quarterback. He might not tackle him, but he's getting there.
Yeah. Herbig's better than I thought. Already better than I ever expected him to be. He's already surpassed mine.
Well, that's the thing is when he was drafted, there were people, that were wondering if he was going to play in off-ball linebacker.
Yeah,
so
off-ball,
yeah. from that standpoint, yeah, he's already far exceeded expectations.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Trent. I think you want to chime in some more.
I would absolutely be fine playing because I think the easy way to cover that up is quit running so much nickel and run base a little bit more frequently. And you can kind of cut first down. If you're in base, Herbig can be your first, second, and third down linebacker. Now, if you're going to do what we did last year and you're out of base, but they run it 28% of the time, then it's just a different question because now Alex, not being out there is a better run defender. And I think Herbig's better than people give him credit for, but Alex is obviously a much better run defender than Nick Herbig is right now. And it's out of sheer size and strength. But I don't think it's crazy to think about.
Okay. All right, we're running a little long. Any crash out guys this year that you see? I'm very, very skeptical of Darius Slay. And you guys have said this a bunch of times. You guys know how I feel about 34-year-old cornerbacks who have openly talked, this is my last year. I want one more run. That's 1 foot in retirement for me. He's my number one.
I mean, I 100% see that train of thought and where you're coming from. And had you not said the second part, my pushback was going to be, well, he just did it at 33 years old. So I understand that it can happen any given year that he could fall off a cliff when you get to that age. But yeah, I can't speak to, from a mindset standpoint where he's at or anything like that. But I have a hard time projecting based off what I saw last year that all of a sudden he's going to fall off a cliff this year. But
yeah,
when
there's
you
no
get
evidence.
up there in age, I think it's a fair question. Yeah. Right. It's all projection due to the age. And there aren't players that at his position that are still even typically doing this, let alone playing at a high level. So.
Yeah. Well, Gilmore is still playing at a high level.
Somewhat high level, yeah.
Has he signed somewhere yet? I was
No,
going to say, is he playing at a high level this year?
I think he did what he did last year. And towards the end of training camp, he'll sign with somebody. He don't want to go to training camp.
I think so. Context will be important here for who I'm going to say, and not like using the word crash out necessarily, but like based off where expectations are at, won't meet them. I don't think Deshaun Elliott's going to repeat 2024 and 2025. And I don't think that's crazy to say. Like if he has that type of year, we're talking about one of the best safeties in the NFL. And I think he's a very good player, but I think he overachieved last season from what the career that he put forth up to that point was. So if I'm going somebody that's not going to live up to expectations because of how high he's now set the expectations, Deshaun Elliott's the guy at the top of my list.
That's a great point because he had such a good year last year. It would be hard to repeat that. It'd be really hard to repeat that.
I don't mean mine is a shot, but I'm going to echo and say a guy who won't live is Cam, because if he's an All-Pro again, God bless him. But I mean, let's face it,
it's the age thing again. Yeah.
Yeah, the age thing. I still think he's going to be very good. I'm not saying he's going to have a bad year, but to be dominant and All-Pro level at his age.
I say it all the time. He's a fucking unicorn. I thought he was done 2 years ago, and he's still crushing it. So I'm not going to.
If he has a Calais Campbell year, like 6-7 sacks, and plays solid against the run, I'd be really happy with that. But, I mean, I just can't see him being an All-Pro again.
Yeah, I'll be honest. Deshaun Elliott was one of my guys that I was going to say. So, Smitty, you're a bastard. Took my guy. But I think the other guy that I could easily see having a crash out is Isaac Seumalo. I think we've seen that there's some downhill trajectory there. I may be a little more worried about him than Broderick Jones right now. And that's a tall thing to say, but like just the way his play has kind of come downhill, and he was such a great pass blocker, but last year he struggled even in that area. Like that's a big part of his game that's going downhill, and he was never like a tremendous run blocker. So like knowing how we plan to play this, I think I'm a little worried about Isaac more than I am even Broderick Jones right now.
And all 5 of those guys are playing without a net because there is no backup at any position that gives you hope. So it's all or nothing. Broderick Jones was one of my kind of crash out possibilities too. This is make or break for him. He needs to do it for a variety of reasons because they don't have anybody to replace him.
Whoa. Career. Calvin Anderson is right.
I was just going to say, you're going to give us Calvin Anderson.
Don't forget about the other Anderson, Spencer.
Jokes aside, and I'm not saying that this would continue. Calvin Anderson's tape from having to play in that playoff game when Dan Moore got hurt and having to play in a pinch, he looked like he belongs. I'm not saying he should have gotten a 2-year contract and basically been handed the swing tackle position because of that performance, but there were some encouraging moments on tape where I was like, oh, he looks like there's maybe something there. No, I'm joking around when I say that.
I was hoping you were going to. Jesus.
I was surprised by the way they handled Dylan Cook because I thought he was a guy that they kind of were high on as a developmental guy, and they kept him on IR, and then they're like, oh yeah, we used this IR spot on you, and now we're going to go ahead and just cut you. Like that was kind of the most strange moves I think I'd seen this team make in a while.
He's back on the roster, right?
When you get hurt, he is back on the roster. But when you get hurt and you're somebody that's already a little bit down the depth chart, you can't afford it.
Yeah, I was just surprised by the way they did it because there's only so many IR spots, and the fact that they used one on him, I'm like, okay, well, they must be more high on him than I realized. And then like, oh, by the way, hey, welcome back from IR, you're cut.
Yeah, see, like we were talking about Calvin Anderson. I thought that was like the swing tackle in waiting. When what's his name went to Washington, Trent Scott signed with Washington and left. I thought Dylan Cook was going to take over that swing tackle spot, but injury got him.
Greg's got a good question here. I'm definitely interested to hear the answer to this one from Zach.
Oh, Gareth Warren, former guest on Steelers Afternoon Drive, Gareth Warren. I'll be honest, didn't know a lot about him. Awesome story for sure. Grew up a Steelers fan. Much better in run blocking than pass protection right now. I mean, they liked him enough from rookie camp to give him a contract. If you're watching this, Gareth, maybe close your ears, earmuffs, or tune out. But I would not project him. I would not project him to make this roster. Now, practice. Could he be another like Dylan Cook? type story where he makes the practice squad and there's something to work with there, potentially. But I don't think he's giving you any type of solutions in 2025.
Yeah, you got to be careful of the UDFAs that are from small schools, and that's
Very
the
small
longest of
school,
long
yeah.
shots to make the roster. But I mean,
Lindenwood University.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
It'd be a great story.
It's not.
Go ahead, Dave.
I keep cutting people off today. My timing's way off tonight. It's not a murderer's row of backup offensive linemen he's got to beat out, but still, long shot.
It'd be nice to see him make the practice squad. Maybe next year make the roster, and then who knows? A couple of years down the line, maybe there is something there.
Him and Aiden Williams, maybe something to work with there as well on the offensive line. We'll see. They might be competing for just one spot there, but
Yeah,
that's a battle I'm interested to watch. Honestly, I mean, you guys probably talk about this more, and as often as I come on here, maybe I'll be on here to talk about it. But as we sit here right now, off-ball linebacker, defensive line, offensive line, because of the depth guys. I'm not saying that they necessarily have like a bunch of talent there. Are my three battles that I'm most excited to watch in training camp and preseason.
The defensive lineman is what, 8-9 deep.
Oh yeah, there's going to be an NFL player. There's going to be a player that's on a different roster, NFL roster that's cut from that group, or maybe traded. Maybe they can use. Maybe there's a trade piece within there.
Marvin Leal.
Honestly, I was even considering him. He has not done anything with the defensive line. He's been strictly he's been strictly with the edge group. As like competing with Jeremiah Moon for one spot, probably maybe Jeremiah Moon for one spot.
They don't know what they want to do with the Marvin Leal. Something different.
He ain't going to be on the roster for them to do anything with. So
yeah.
What about Logan Lee? Is he going to make this roster at all?
That's what I'm saying. Like I keep hearing really good things about him and Loudermilk, which is going to make it tough for a guy like Dean Lowry. But like within that group, there might be two of them, if not for sure one of them that's not on this roster that I think will certainly be on a different team's roster.
I think Dean Lowry could be the odd man out.
Yeah,
all said and done.
Didn't they give Loudermilk a contract though?
They just gave Loudermilk a new contract. Yeah, I think he's got the best. Yeah, I think like he's probably the safest of those guys I just mentioned. And then like Logan Lee, I think they're just super intrigued. Didn't get to see him last year, so like I think right now Lowry's probably the guy out. And honestly, when it's like a toss up like that, he offers obviously some more cap savings there. He's making a little bit of money, so.
Yeah, Logan Lee's RAS score was like off the charts for that position too, and that seems like a direction they're moving in. So,
isn't he a backup nose at this point? Didn't he play nose?
Good. He did. Jesus Christ. Yeah,
because Yaya Black's not going to do it, so somebody's got to be there.
So isn't the rumor that he came in noticeably stronger already on the back of a great RAS score?
That'd be something.
Did he gain? Did he gain 20 pounds yet to get up to about the size he needs to be? Because he was like 275.
Darnell shedded it and handed it to him.
He picked up Darnell's weight. We're going to move the 336 guy out to the 4i, and we're going to move the guy at 270 into the nose. This is the kind of just incredible strategic thinking you get from the Steelers coaching staff. You just don't get anywhere else. I mean, nobody else is going to make these kind of moves. Okay, 270 pounds at the nose.
There is one thing. I mean, a defensive line, they're noticeably better. The top four are noticeably better than last year's top four.
Yeah,
for sure.
They are improved there. Well, it was an easy jump when you're talking about some of the guys they got rid of, but
they could have brought no one in. The one subtraction of Larry Ogunjobi just did it for me. They were already better. Didn't need to draft anyone.
Well, go ahead, Trent.
I will.
All right, we got anything else before we get out of here? Any more crash outs?
Reminder about our sponsor, Ultra GM.
Yeah, I was going to get, Ultra GM. Don't forget to sign up for that.
We're getting close to half full for the Steelers Sanctuary League. If you have trouble, DM Dave, DM me or David, and let us know if you're having trouble. Zach is certainly welcome to join. We know Tony Serino has already joined. Should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's going to be a lot of fun. Thanks to everybody in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Until next time, thanks for listening to the Steelers Sanctuary Podcast.
That's all the shit I'm gonna get, motherfucker.
Excuse me. Thank you.
What am I supposed to do?
You are embarrassing yourself here, lads.
saw that coming.
Wrong, sir. Wrong.
Okay, I'll play. You got me.